Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first story is titled, Hold Your Horses. A few years back I used to work at a pottery shop where we held various bisque pieces, clay that has been molded then fired in a kiln that you could paint. We would then glaze and fire the pieces once more. I loved this job. Families painting together and kids' birthday parties were common in the shop, so Steph, the owner, my boss, had a kids' corner. Mostly it was various small animals, as well as different sizes of tiles. Anyway, one busy Saturday, Steph was quite stressed as the shop was fairly busy with a big birthday party and many other tables filled. I was asked a question that I didn't know the answer to, so off I went to ask Steph. Being that she was a bit frustrated, she snapped at me, "Hold your horses, okay?" Okay then, so off I went to the kids' corner. It just so happened that we had gotten some small horses in for the corner. I have to stress that I literally have never seen horses in the kids' corner since that day or before. So, I grabbed one in each hand, and went back over to Steph, stoically holding my horses. She was confused. "What are you doing?" she asked me. "You told me to hold my horses, so," I shrugged. Her bad mood was obliterated. She cracked up. She thought it was so funny she took a photo of me holding my horses. I'm pretty sure it's still hanging in the shop. Good times. I miss that job. The next story is titled, Returns Require a Ticket but You Won't Respond to Tickets? Okay, I'll make you respond. I worked for an IT company a while back and needed to do a return on a faulty computer component. My tickets would be constantly closed as complete from the vendor with no information given. We realized they used the same ticketing system as us due to a loop created by auto-responses back and forth from both systems. We stopped the issue on our side and said, "Oh well, that's good to know." After a few weeks and 50+ tickets, I was no closer to a resolution. My strategy at that time was spamming them with tickets as they were very easy to create in their system. I tried calling. I'd leave voicemails but messages stated all returns are done via their online ticketing system. Okay. I sent my ticket to every department several times a day after getting no response from the returns department or my voicemails. Clearly the tickets could be closed just as easily on their end with no care or reprocessing. Then I realized I had the answer all along. I asked my boss to remove the new rules he had implemented to stop the loop of responses. He set another rule to basically auto-clear the response right after it's received, and we have already auto-responded. This was to ensure it doesn't crash the ticketing system, given this was generating a response every few seconds and I was going to do this on 5 tickets. These responses also generate an email being sent back and forth. That should make for several hundred emails per minute. Better yet, I'm fairly certain images were getting relayed with each response. On an older or poorly set up system, that's a whole lot of traffic and data coming in. Even worse if no one there knows what's happening or how to stop it. Many companies don't have an IT department due to overall need. They outsource to companies like mine to fulfill those needs. It took less than an hour. We received a frantic call from the vendor asking to stop the auto responses from our system because they didn't know how. It had basically taken down their email server because it was full and no one knew how to fix it. Oh, sorry about that. I'm glad you called though. I wasn't sure anyone worked at your company because I've been trying to contact you for weeks. We didn't notice a problem on our end, but we can see what's going on now. Must be a different setup. Weird. I had a credit for the part before we ended the call. I hung up the phone victorious, called the boss and told him to put the rule back. We never bought from them again. The next story is titled, HR Wasn't Informed of Changes in My Working. I work as a technical architect, product designer for a software company, medium enterprise, and I am only 24 years old. At 24 years, you don't usually see a lot of people in the designation, so most of the new senior hires look down on me. I have been working my ass off at this place since this was a startup with less than 50 employees, hence I've done all sorts of jobs for this place. I've taken the letters to post office and even cleaned the office on odd nights. Probably that, and maybe that I am good at what I do has helped me be very known and loved by the CEO, CTO, and people of those ranks. We got a new HR in October and I was on medical leave during those months. Her designation says she's the senior HR executive and we'll call her Janice, and when I joined back, I did not bother to inform her, because I did not know she exists. Now, that is kinda bad from my part, but I directly walked into the CEO's room. He hugged me and welcomed back. The HR director was also there. We spoke for 15 minutes, I was assigned my new project, and honestly, that was it. Most senior officials in office have their designated cabins, but we haven't put our names outside it. It is just named C1, C2, and so on. Ironically, we have our COO in C4 and he's always angry and willing to explode, but most of the old employees sit outside with the team to work. Probably because we are yet to get used to the luxury of a cabin. Haha. Janice just walks up to me and tells me that I am supposed to have my induction and joining back training to be conducted, and I tell her that I would do it once I am free, as I have certain meetings aligned with my team already to understand the new project. And trust me, I know the policies around as much or better than most people, so I did think that I was above her law. But I think I pissed her off, as I immediately got a mail with the HR director looped. I cancelled my events and decided to attend her session, but I think I fell in her bad books that day. During the session, I said that I was unaware that this training was to be done, and that is why I had set up meetings, and Janice told me, things always change and it is your job to be aware. Honestly, a very beautiful and truthful sentence that I am taking with me for the rest of my life. Months pass and I am working from a client's office in the city, which means, I just log into my building after winding up my tasks at the client location. With the traffic, I reach back pretty late. Around 11 p.m. And I spend an hour or two here and call it a day. This is not normal. The task was tough. Timeline small. I guess you've all been there. One fine morning, I received the mail saying I'd have an inquiry this month, as I have been clocking less than 2 hours in the office, and that I have a one-on-one to explain it to Janice why I wasn't here. Now I am pissed. In all the years I have worked here, I was never asked in for an inquiry. What pissed me off even further was that I had to explain to Janice, of all the people. During my one-on-one, where a lot of HR associates were present, I tell Janice that I work out of client's office and that those 2 hours you see is me traveling over 20 km from the client's place and then working from here after my time there. I also ping my CEO in this span, as I did not have time for Janice's crap. CEO walks in and we explain the whole situation to him, and he blasts Janice for asking me to explain stuff to her. He also tells her that I am working at clients and that exempts him from these policies. He also adds that these policies don't apply to my kids. The OG 50 employees who build the stack up. She, now at a loss of words after understanding there is no point in messing with me, says, but we were not informed of this change. And I said in Buddha-like voice, I'd like to believe, things always change and it is your job to be aware. The next story is titled, I can't buy these anymore? I'll make them. I can't buy these anymore? I'll make them. You guys know the drill. On mobile, and if I have any spelling or grammar mistakes let me know. So, I love stuffed animals. I'm going to be honest here and say I'm addicted to them. I just love the feeling of getting in bed and being surrounded by warm fluff. It's so comfortable for me and it feels like I'm being hugged. I have a weighted blanket, but it doesn't stop my addiction. When I first got a job, I started to get a lot more stuffed animals that I had wanted for a while. Eventually my mum got tired of how many I had and told me that I couldn't buy them anymore. I was upset by this, but then I saw someone sewing a stuffed animal together online for a custom order they had, and I got an idea. I went to Walmart and I bought some fabric, needles, and thread, and I made a pattern and made a stuffed animal. Now my mum doesn't want to stop me because it's a hobby of mine, and now I love to hand sew stuffed animals. Once the chaos hit, I started making masks too. So now I have unlimited stuffed animals and I have all the power to make ones that are exactly how I want. My niece and nephew love it too. So in the end I got a great hobby out of this and more stuffed animals. The next story is titled, She Needs to Speak Properly. Okay, sure. Spanish edition. My native language is Spanish, and I live in a country with about 8 or more dialects, accents, some very different one from the other. None of my parents, my mum, my dad, or my stepdad, are from the city I was born and where we live. My stepdad is from the coastal region, mum and dad are both from a valley city in the south, and we live in the capital. I tell you all this so that you understand that I have a very, very weird accent, which was more noticeable when I was kid, at the time our story took place. When I was 11, my Spanish literature teacher hated how I pronounced the words and she would force me to constantly read out loud in order to berate me with corrections. And no good corrections, she actually mocked me in front of the whole class, implying I was dumb because I didn't speak like the rest of them. After a while I felt really bad and spoke to my homeroom teacher, who was a really cool guy. He was also not native to the city and had an accent himself, but a very soft one. We had a reunion with her and while she obviously denied mocking me, she admitted she was trying to change my accent, or as she put it, I want her to speak Spanish properly. Cue to his malicious compliance, as he offered to help me himself during recess for the next whole week. Fast forward to the next literature class. Like always, my Spanish teacher asked me to read out loud and I used the lessons my homeroom teacher gave me. I didn't know at the time, but what my homeroom teacher really taught me was how to speak with Castilian accent, meaning, the original Spanish spoken by Europeans. Think British English vs American. He even taught me how to use voseo, which means using vos instead of the more common to or usted, and to add is to verbs. Obviously, my Castilian was horrible and merely a parody of how it truly is. I was 11 after all, and it ended making my whole class laugh without control because of how funny it sounded. My teacher got mad, but when she tried to punish me, I told her, "Mr. Homeroom says this is how proper Spanish sounds." She didn't say a thing afterwards and ended the class about 20 minutes before the bell rang. Later my homeroom teacher found me and told me I could speak normally and that my Spanish teacher would not bother me again, which ended up being true. It was many years later that I understood what had happened, but sadly I could not thank my homeroom teacher because he had changed schools. Still, I think of him as one of the best men I have ever met. The next story is titled, Tiny Human Wholesome MC. So a comment on another post about Tiny Human Malicious Compliance being awesome reminded me of this brief story of my son. As a preface, my son was 2 when this happened, and as most know, 2-year-old little boys are a handful. My son, Lucas, is quite smart, a bit devious, and entirely fearless. For the start of the year and with refund money I bought new swing sets for mine and my parents' home. My mother cannot stand when Lucas scales anything, and upon getting this new swing set and slide he immediately tried to climb up the slide portion. My mother fusses at him to sit down and slide. Without much of a pause, Lucas sits at the bottom of the slide and pushes himself up the slide and then slides back down with a very triumphant, "I did it." The next story is titled, If You Want Your Day to Be a Little Better, Debt Collectors. I have a stressful job in a homeless shelter, and when people ask me how I can keep doing what I'm doing, I tell them this story. A little explanation is required, please be patient. The way debt collection works where I'm from is like this. Customers don't pay bill, companies sell debt to debt collectors to get their money. Debt collectors buy the debt and charge the customers interest, basically taking the headache off the company's hands. So every once in a while, I have debt collectors call my shelter, asking for one of my clients. This is how the conversations usually go. DC equals debt collectors. DC, hi, is so-and-so there? Me, I'm sorry, I can't release information of whether someone is here or not. Can I take a message? My clients are protected under the Public Health Information Act, or PHIA, so I can't release confidential information unless there's a court order. DC, who has probably heard every excuse in the book, and thinks I'm lying to avoid them, starts to give me attitude. No thank you. You can't tell me if so-and-so is there? Me, no I can't. People are protected under PHIA here. DC PHIA? At this point I know who they are, and don't offer up information. I make them do all the work. Me explains PHIA all hospitals, nursing homes, and other healthcare providers us at asterisk. DC, oh I'm sorry, what place is this? Me says name of organization. DC still giving me attitude, and what is that? Me, a homeless shelter. Click, the debt collector hangs up on me. Long story short, I happily get the privilege to tell debt collectors that they are screwed, and are never getting their money. Companies know damn well what address and phone number is my shelter, but still give services to my clients, who use the shelter as an address and phone number. Then the companies get debt collectors to take the debt, knowing fully that there is a very low chance of getting their money. For all of you who have been harassed by debt collectors, just know, I'm out here telling them how screwed they are. KARMAS idiot. Update, it's more anger at the company themselves. And I'm usually not mean until the employee starts really giving me attitude. I've had a few yell at me when I've told them the PHIA thing. I understand debt collectors are doing their job, but they are 100% mean when they do it. And the debt company themselves will literally harass people, calling them every day. I've had a friend who literally got a call at work because they found out where they worked. The next story is titled, I am kosher, but I need the butter. Back in high school, many years ago, I worked at a mall pretzel place. Every mall has them. There are a couple things you should know about it though. This was right around when food allergies were becoming a big thing and gluten-free, dairy-free was a new hot topic. You would not believe the number of people who would screech at me that we didn't have a gluten-free option at a pretzel place, then buy one anyway, but that's a tale for another day. Additionally, we had a large influx of people of other cultures and ethnicities, so we often would make sure if someone said vegetarian or vegan or no butter that it was dietary, not religious, preference, and if using the butter, which meat items like beef hot dogs and pepperoni were also dipped in, was okay. Usually people who couldn't or wouldn't eat pork or beef would be thankful I mentioned it, and we would use an alternative if need be. And 2. Our regulars were a combination of mall walkers, who bought nothing but took all the free samples, and mall employees, who also took all the samples like it was completely acceptable because they bought a $1 coffee from us one time a month ago and their employee discount was life and death, it's 10%. These employees were the bane of my existence. Between the creepy older men who would wander over from the suit shops to leer and flirt with the 16 and 17-year-old girls and ask for infinite refills in a clearly very old cup, to the rude employees who got angry over waiting for something they special ordered, and the ones who got angry over not getting their employee discount on Dollar Pretzel Day, I crap you not, it's a damn dollar. It was a struggle. This story revolves around a specific employee who fell into the last two categories of mall employees. A true Karen before Karens were a thing. I nicknamed God's greatest gift, because seemed to think she was, and I still have zero idea what her actual name was. Whether it was her great accomplishment of working in a department store at 45 or her clear loyalty and kindness at frequenting our location multiple times a day for her snacks and drinks, I don't know. Anyway, sorry long intro. We had a lovely cook from Ecuador who spoke mostly Spanish and would sometimes have to take the early orders when we just opened while I or another employee got the drawers ready. I walked in and heard a screech and turned around. GGG has thrown her pretzel back on the counter and at the cook. There's meat that's been on this. I am kosher. How dare you, you stupid, inappropriate slur towards a Spanish speaker I can't remember but won't repeat. I apologized to her and said we would remake it as she stomped away. I asked the cook what happened. Apparently this was a regular issue. GGG came just as we were opening to order a cheese pretzel, an item not on our menu. She wanted the pizza pretzel but without the pepperonis. It's a special order we don't often do but at slow times can do if they are willing to wait. It looked like the pretzel had been on the same tray as the other pizza pretzels and a pepperoni had gotten caught in the melting cheese and was removed before being dipped in butter and given to the customer. Now normally if someone has an issue, a polite "I'm sorry but I can't have this because I'm kosher" or a vegetarian can be easily resolved with a remake and apology. GGG seemed to do this regularly whenever she didn't get exactly what she wanted. I later found out she actually spoke fluent Spanish when she screamed at another cook for saying she was being a rude idiot in Spanish to another cook and at any time could have explained to cook if she needed something special. So we remade the pretzel and GGG stood there tapping her toes and mumbling about stupid Mexicans. So I decided to comply exactly with what she said. I remade the pretzel. And when it came out, carefully removed it from the tray and places directly into the paper holder, no butter. I tried to hand it to her. GGG, Karen, where's the butter? I want butter. Me, I'm so sorry ma'am but our butter is not kosher. You said you were kosher and our meat products contain pork and are dipped in the same butter. I can't do that. GGG, Karen, but I want butter. Me, yes ma'am but I have to respect your needs and information. You said you were kosher and I do not want to disrespect your faith in any way. Note, I grew up with quite a few kosher friends whose families were very strict, and they let me know that not informing them or following kosher guidelines was a huge issue and very disrespectful, so I always tried to be careful. GGG. Karen, I'm not kosher. Me, but ma'am, you just yelled you were kosher and I thought we had offended you but allowing a meat product to touch your pretzel. GGG. Karen, I'm not. No, I don't want, just put it in the butter. Me, are you sure ma'am? GGG. Karen, yes fine whatever. She took her pretzel and left. By then it was probably cold and she didn't bother us for another month. The next story is titled Pharmacist v. Doctor's Office, for the win. My doctor's office sucks. Disorganized would be an improvement. Rude, snippy, God complex, they have it all covered. When it comes to RX renewals, they're very snippy about, have the pharmacist fax us a request. 1980 wants their fax machine back. I phoned the pharmacy on Monday to ask for a renewal and they faxed the doctor's office. Crickets. On Friday morning was the store and asked the pharmacy tech if the renewal was ready. They said they hadn't heard back from the doctor. The pharmacist called both the office and the doctor's line and left messages. When she hadn't heard back in an hour, she faxed them the fourth request. When 11 a.m. rolls around and she hasn't heard back, she came up with a strategy. She would fill 2 prescriptions, walk over to the fax machine and punch resend. She would go back to her station, fill 2 more prescriptions and repeat. At around 1:30, so maybe 14 resends, the doctor's office frantically called her to stop sending renewal requests. And she sweetly told them that since they hadn't responded since Monday, she was just taking care of her customer, me, and she wasn't sure they were ever going to respond. She had the renewal at 1:45, filled it by 2:15, called me and I picked it up at 3. I love my pharmacist. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and post some bear emojis in the comment.